B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, bruchim habayim. We're back, Baruch Hashem. We're back to our series, the Tzetel Katan, after nearly 2 months of taking care of some other important things, the holidays, and of course some family things, Baruch Hashem. But we're back to this very important series, the Tzetel Katan, on our Sunday night. And BeEzrat Hashem, tonight's shiur is going to be for the Ilui Nishmat of Mordechai ben Liza. And Leavdil also for the Refuah Shlema for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Zora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to support the organization, continue to help us, and BeEzrat Hashem will continue to watch and learn together with us and grow closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu each and every day, Baruch Hashem. So tonight, before we get started with the extraordinary series which quite a few of you have asked me about, just a reminder for all of you to go to the Kiruv store, get back to doing Kiruv, get back to distributing books in your community. We have a new shipment of the Sichot book that's English and Hebrew, with beautiful pictures in it, great Divrei Torah by Rabbi Ephraim and his Rabbanit. This is the only English book that we have in the store currently, but we are getting some of the shipments. We're also sending them out, some of Rav Yagen's English books, but that's more of a selective, case-by-case basis. Also, we have the Ochachot v'Tochachot. Of course, we have Rav Ephraim's Kuntres HaShoah, Kuntres Gehenom. All of these are in this small, extraordinary book, which certainly will change your life if you get through it and really understand what you're reading. And of course, we have Rav Sharvit's book, we have my books in there, and we have the USBs. We have the USBs that are in English, hundreds and hundreds of hours of Torah in there from over the years. The series about Bitachon, the series of Stump the Rabbi, and Era of Mashiach, Tikkun Abrit, all of these other extraordinary series are in the USBs. They're there for free for you to distribute in your communities. And BeEzrat Hashem, soon we're going to start letting you know about what this extraordinary new BeEzrat Hashem box is. That's going to be also in the Kiruv store. Anyone that's interested in sponsoring and helping, this is going to be a skula for Refuah Shlema. And BeEzrat Hashem will start distributing those very soon as well, BeEzrat Hashem. This is the Asher Yetzer posters I spoke to you about some time ago, but a completely new version of it. And Baruch Hashem, it's going to be a major healer for Am Yisrael, BeEzrat Hashem. So with that being said, we have one final announcement, which is the HAGANUZ film is going to be publicized on November 30th. November 30th, the world will change. The world will never be the same again, simply because once the hidden light is exposed to people, people will see things that we've discussed over the last 10 years, literally shown to them in black and white in ways like never before. The film, Baruch Hashem, has taken an enormous amount of time, resources, and a lot of fighting against the Yetzer, and Baruch Hashem, it's ready, and it will be publicized on November 30th. So we've had several trailers publicized in the last month, one of them today, and one person actually said it rightly, that just the trailer alone is a film. The trailer alone gives you chizuk. So the film is 1,000,000 times more than that. BeEzrat Hashem, get prepared to publicize it, get prepared to do everything you possibly can to get this film out there to as many people as possible. We literally want millions of people to watch it within the first 24 hours. But of course, we did our effort. Success in the hands of Hashem. Anyone that wants to support, anyone that wants to help, is more than welcome to do so if you want to do it.
I tried to warn them. They didn't want to listen.
One of the things that I've been speaking against over the last several years is cash advance, lending money with high interest.
Some of those rates legally are as high as 1,900% a year.
People are not searching for the truth. What are they searching for? Quick way out of my problems.
One of the things that the Talmud teaches us, simply how to behave. Social media is discussed extensively in the Torah, in the oral Torah, in the written Torah, in halacha. God wanted to give you a chance to follow the Torah. You decided to go against. You desecrated His name. The amount of punishment and suffering you're going to get is literally going to be endless.
Every single second, you stay friends with your old Christian friends, with your old missionary friends, with your old atheist friends, with your old friends that are anti-Torah, is a life risk. You have to get rid of a lot of the stuff that triggers you. If you want to progress, that means you have to abandon the past.
By being modest in behavior and clothing makes the person a vessel that is able to accept a certain amount of holiness in the world.
Pornography is no less addictive than the hardest drugs in the world.
Experts say there's another pandemic. Children exposed to pornography on the devices we give them.
Zarah says after you make the same sin twice, Yetzer tells you it's allowed.
Here we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not just a fairy tale that sometimes people would like for Him to be. The majority choose to be evil. Before the Mashiach arrives. Today they look like they're a millionaire. Today they look like they're living large. Look around the corner and they're gone.
I tried to warn them, but they didn't want to listen.
So we have our series that, just to remind you, the world of Chassidut stands on, not only teachings of the Chassidim, the Baal Shem Tov, the Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, Rabbi Zusha, his brother, Magid Mimezrich, the Tanya, all of the great Chassidim over the last few hundred years, but Chassidut in general is already found in the times of the Gemara. It's just that it was a selected or specified or taught in a unique way over the last few years since the time of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Chassidim from Gul, from Chabad, from Tzanz, all of the great Chassidim that are out there in the world today are all practicing the same exact Judaism as the rest of the Orthodox Jews in the world. It's just that there are certain things that are taught within the world of Chassidut that allow them to do more than what is required for the rest of Am Yisrael, that is doing simply what they're required to do. The problem today is that if a person is not familiar with what Chassidut really is, they'll actually be confused. They'll be confused so much so that they'll actually think that they can buy into Chassidut. By simply getting together a few $1,000s, they'll get themselves a shtreimel, unless if they're in Chabad, there's no shtreimels there. They'll get themselves some garments for, that Chassidim wear, and they think they're Chassidim. But the reality is that Chassidut is not so much the clothing, but really what's beneath it. Because if a person spends several $1,000s on a shtreimel and some other garments and looks like a chassid but still acts like a behemah, there's nothing chassid about him. Because Chassidut in general, as we've learned during the first 8 lectures of this series, is doing above and beyond what HaKadosh Baruch Hu already requires us to do. And Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk is taking us on a journey where he's trying to teach us everything we possibly would need to know in order to be Chassidim, in whatever level where we can. Some of the things may seem easy to some, and certainly some of them seem completely impossible. In the last lecture, we learned about the importance of removing immoral thoughts, illicit thoughts from our minds. Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk Tzetel Katan warned us what to do when these thoughts arrived in our mind. Now, today, we already know and we've learned together what the Rambam has said, which is that people that have these thoughts in their mind on a regular basis are people that do not have any Torah in their minds. And if you find yourself learning Torah but still having these inappropriate thoughts, that simply means you don't have enough Torah. The question is now, what do you do once you're already learning Torah, once you've already decided to change, once you've already decided to go on the right path, but the path that you're on is not necessarily in the Beit HaMikdash. The path that you're in is in New York, is in Florida, is in Arizona, is in Australia, is in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in different places where, unfortunately, not everybody's walking around like they just came down from Mount Sinai. Some people are walking around immodest, or you drive in a highway every day to go to work, or to even go to shul, wherever you're going, and you see the billboards, and they're constantly full of immodesty. Or you go on the internet, and for work purposes, for personal purposes, even to watch this shiur, and you'll see advertisements everywhere, pictures everywhere, news everywhere, full of immodesty. Whether they're advertising for soap, or they're advertising for dog food, it always is coupled with immodesty. So immodesty is everywhere. And if it's not there, it's even in places where you would never think, like Discovery Channel, where you're learning about animals and nature. You would never think that this has anything to do with damaging your mind. But tonight, you'll learn that even watching things that you think are innocent or not related to humans could very well be damaging your mind. And your mind is the most important thing, because that's the one thing that connects you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk is now going to take these holy words and help us protect the windows to our soul in the case where a person is trying to purify themselves, but either they have so much garbage from the past still in the system, or they accidentally run into it. What do you do? How do you guard your eyes? How do you guard your soul? In the 7th section of the Tzetel Katan, Rabbi Elimelech says as follows: if a person accidentally sees something indecent, God forbid, such as animals or birds mating, or a hand's breadth of a woman's hair or skin that should be covered, or one's wife when she's in a state of nida, of impurity, or similar things, he should immediately recite the verse in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 29, "V'lo taturu achei levavchem v'achei einechem." Do not follow your heart, so as not to defile his mind, God forbid. This is the section we're going to delve into today, where seems rather simple, but once we delve into it, we see the depth of the words of the extraordinary Chassid Rabbi Elimelech. First and foremost, Rabbi Elimelech is assuming that if we've arrived in the 7th section of this book, looking at immodesty is no longer a choice, but rather an accident. If you're still choosing to look at immodesty, choosing to look at pornography, choosing to look at things that are inappropriate, then perhaps you should watch the first 8 lectures of this series several more times. Add to it the Tikkun Brit film, add to it Kafakela lecture, add to it the Chibut HaKever film, add to it the Gehenom film. Once you've finished all of those, then go through the entire playlist that is mentioned in the Guide to Tikkun Brit that we have, which has nearly 200 lectures there as well. Once you complete that, you'll be finished, you'll be fine, you'll be clean, you'll be ready for chapter 7 of the Tzetel Katan. You'll be at a point where looking at immodesty becomes an accident. So what happens if it accidentally happens? Where he sees something indecent. Now, of course, Rabbi Elimelech knows who he's dealing with. Sometimes a person doesn't actually know the definition of what indecent means. There are plenty of people that are walking around thinking that they're perfectly modest, even though their behavior is like animals. They may have modest clothes, they may cover their hair, they may wear a shtreimel, they may dress perfectly righteous. But their behavior is literally no different than an animal. In other cases, there are people that walk around thinking that they are modest because the dress is long. But they don't realize that the fact that it's long is almost useless because it has a slit on the side or the back or wherever it is, which actually make it more provocative than had they worn even a shorter dress. Or they'll wear their kisui rosh only on part of their hair because they figure that they like this part, this ponytail they have, or they don't necessarily need to cover everything. Or like many women do, they wear these baseball hats. They wear a baseball hat and all of their hair is out. And they think that they're covering their hair. Now again, nice people, wonderful people. But as far as following the halacha, not so much. Not so much. So sometimes a person needs to learn a definition. And that's what the Tzetel Katan does for us here, where he says, if a person would accidentally see something indecent, how could you possibly see something indecent accidentally? He gives us an example. You accidentally saw animals or birds mating. I can assure you that many people that are watching this right now and many people that are in your synagogues do not even know that's a sin. In fact, they don't even think there's anything wrong with it. But the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, in page 20, says to us, V'nishmarta mikol davara. The sages taught that in the verse, in Deuteronomy 23 verse 10, that you shall beware of anything evil, is referring to things that a person would see and would end up bringing immoral thoughts to their mind. And then the Gemara gives different examples of things that are considered immoral. But if a person does not trust the opinion of the sages, they could simply look at the halacha. You go to the Rambam. And the Rambam, after teaching us in Ilchot Isurei Biyah, in chapter 21, where in Halacha number 18, he talks about how it's forbidden to waste seed. It's forbidden for a person to engage in relations with even his own wife in the public. You know, you have to be moral, you have to be modest. It's forbidden to do a lot of different things that unfortunately today have become a norm. But here there's one thing that the Rambam says that I can assure you many people don't realize is even forbidden. In chapter 21, verse Halacha number 20, the Rambam paskins, one should not look at animals, beasts, and fowls at the time males and females are coupling. It is, however, permitted for a breeder of livestock to insert the male animal organ into the females, since he is working in his profession and he will not be motivated to immoral thoughts. So here, the Rambam paskins l'halacha, and the same thing in the Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer, in chapter 23, the third halacha. Shulchan Aruch says that it's forbidden to look at animals. Now, of course, if somebody's watching one of these nature shows, Discovery or whatever they're called, which are very interesting and certainly better than the garbage they have on television, news and politics and sports, but sometimes they'll show you things like this and people will think it's perfectly fine, perhaps even funny. This is 100% forbidden. 100% forbidden for you, for your kids, for your family, for anybody. Why? Why is this forbidden? For the same reason that the Rambam says that it's forbidden for men to look at a woman while they do laundry. Even forbidden to look at the colored garments of a woman that he knows. Because it'll bring these thoughts to his mind. And it's the same thing that it's forbidden for him to look at his own wife in a way that's permitted when she's pure, but when she's not pure. Because these will bring thoughts to the person's mind. And that's what the Tzetel Katan is telling us. That whether he's looking at animals or birds or even a woman that's not his wife, or even his wife when she's impure, or anything that's similar. Not only has he done something that's forbidden, but he has put himself at risk. He has endangered his holy of holies. Years ago, there was a meeting a very rare meeting between Rabbi Elazar and Rav Ovadia Yosef. And of course, the Abuchatzira family is known for hundreds of years as holy people, miracle workers. And even Rav Abuchatzira was no less astounded by the extraordinary success that Rav Ovadia Yosef has had in the world of Torah, not just in his memory and scholarship, but with his children. And he asked him, how is it that you have merited that all of your children are Talmidei Chachamim? I mean, one after another. Each one is Talmid Chacham. I mean, there are many great sages throughout the years, but to merit all of your kids being Talmidei Chachamim is something that's very rare. As you can see now, not only do we have Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef just complete his tenure as the Rishon LeZion, now his other son, Rav David Yosef, has become the Rishon LeZion, and Baruch Hashem has given us a blessing. May Hashem bless him and all the good that he does with bracha ve'atzlacha, chayim arukim shlemim, mileim Torah, mitzvot, gmilut chasadim. But Rav Abuchatzira was asking a question of Rav Ovadia. How did you merit to do it? When Rav Ovadia says, well, I learned Torah and dedicated, he says, no, many others are also dedicated to Torah. Many others are also learning Torah. But to merit all of your children being blessed in such a way, you did something different. And Rav Ovadia told him, yes, I never looked at the women. Aside from his wife, never looked at the women to such an extent that when I was sitting in the Bet Din, and there were cases every day coming in where there would be divorces, all types of cases, and sometimes the women would come, often, they would come dressed inappropriately. I would never look at them even once. I would always look down, pretending like I'm writing everything that they're saying. In reality, I didn't want them to be offended that I'm not looking at them, so I wanted to appear as if I'm writing down everything that they're saying, but I already remembered everything they said. In another story, we found out what was he actually writing. He was really drawing something for one of his kids. Each time, the kid that acted the best would get the drawing of the day. And he was quite an artist, I hear. But throughout all of those years of sitting in the Bet Din and never looked at a woman, protecting the windows to the Neshama. This and another story Rav Ovadia said, and this was heard from Rav David Yosef, his son, that when they asked him, to what merit do you attribute this extraordinary memory that you have? Remembering the Torah as if it's all in front of you, like Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. The Gemara says Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes was different than everybody else. Everyone else was obligated to write a Sefer Torah as a sofer, as a scribe, by copying it from another Sefer Torah. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes did not. Why? Because to Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, the Torah was in front of him at all times. We don't even have the concept of what that means. Ovadia had the entire Torah in front of him. To what do you attribute that? Ovadia says, we have a mitzvah of Shema Yisrael. We're in the Shema Yisrael, we say it multiple times a day, in the Shachrit, in the Arivit, and also Shema Lamita. And in there we say, V'lo tatu'u achei levavchem v'achei einechem. You shall not follow after your heart. And then after it says you should not follow after your heart, and then it says you remember my mitzvot. So if you do not look at things that are inappropriate, Hashem tells you, you'll remember my mitzvot, you'll remember Torah. So both of these extraordinary gifts, Ovadia attributes to protecting his eyes. And the reality, Rabotai Karim, is that the Torah is telling us that protecting our eyes is protecting our Neshama. And if a person wants any chance whatsoever of ever being holy, it all begins with the eyes. Because if you could protect your eyes, you could protect your brit, you could protect your kedusha, you could protect your mind. But if you don't protect your eyes, it's impossible for you to ever arrive at holiness. Now, the Gemara in Masechet Nedarim, page 20, 20b, delves into this point. It says, what does it mean? Do not follow your heart. Meaning, to what extent is this? The Torah says you shall not follow your heart. Based on this, Rebbe HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, said, a man should not drink from this cup while setting his eyes on another cup. What does this have to do with anything? Now, obviously, the anti-Semite goyim that look into our Gemara, that always look for things and excuses to justify their hate, look at something like this and they don't think anything of it. They all focus on the same. Oh, look, the 3-year-old, or the mitzitza bepe, or all the different things that they have no concept of. So they try to harp on those. But in reality, here you have something you should look into. Why are the sages talking about cups? What does cups have to do with following your heart? That's because this shows just a small example of how holy our sages were. How holy our Torah is. Where when they spoke about things, they spoke about them with a clean tongue. Even when the matter at hand was something that has to do with morality. Now, of course, we know that according to the Torah, a Jewish man is allowed to marry more than one wife. Certainly, so does a non-Jewish is allowed to marry more than one wife. In Judaism, according to the Torah, as long as the man provides what's necessary for the other wife, he's allowed to marry another wife. Now, this is no longer done in the vast majority of Jewish communities around the world, either because of the Ashkenazi takana of Rabbeinu Gershon for nearly 1,000 years, where he said it's no longer allowed, or even in the Sephardi world where it's only permitted in specific circumstances. And there are cases that were brought to the Rishon LeZion where an Ashkenazi would come to him to permit him to marry a second wife because of extraordinary circumstances, like, for example, if his current wife was in a coma, or ran away, or something like that. And he is then permitted to marry a second wife. And we've dealt with this, Baruch Hashem, in the past. We've had a situation. And so marrying a second wife is permitted according to the Torah. Customarily, it's no longer done like it was in the past. But this is the reason why. Rebbe says, a man should not drink from one cup while setting his eyes on another cup. Meaning, they're comparing in their clean language the cohabitation, the intimacy between a man and his wife as a cup, drinking from a cup. He says, even if his wife doesn't know about it, he should not be thinking about another woman while he's together with her. In fact, even if the woman he's thinking about is also his wife, he's not allowed to think about her. Meaning, even if he's married to two different women, and of course, he's not allowed to be together with them both at the same time. He's together with his one wife. He's not allowed to think about the other one. While he's together with the other one, he's not allowed to think about the first one. Meaning that the primary reason of why Rabbeinu Gershon and other Chachamim have taken the stand against marrying more than one woman just regularly is because people are not even able to fulfill this. Keep their mind clean while they're together with their wife. If the only reason why they wanted to marry more than one wife was just for the provocative reasons like in the Muslim world, then there's no reason for it. There's no permission for it. But to this extent, our Chachamim tell us is how much we need to be careful and protecting our eyes. Because the same Gemara in Masechet Nedarim in 20a says in the name of Rabbi Acha, the son of Rabbi Acha, the son of Rabbi Yoshaya, whoever looks at women will ultimately come to sin. And whoever gazes at the heel of a woman will have children who are not of good character. Meaning that protecting your eyes is not just something that's recommended, that's a good idea, but is actually one of the few things that has consequences in this world. If you look at women, you'll end up sinning. You'll end up wasting seed. You'll end up committing adultery. You'll end up doing all types of things that the Torah says are forbidden. In fact, it doesn't end there. Even if someone who just looks without acting, ultimately, this will lead to action. This will lead to problems. And how do you know? Look at your kids. If your kids are wild, your kids have bad character traits, not when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Pretty much all of them have issues when they're young and still not developed. I'm talking about once they're already teenagers, once they've already developed, they've become men, they've become women, but they have nasty character traits. It's your fault. Why? You didn't protect your eyes. And certainly they still need to fix it. But if you're asking, why did Hashem give me such terrible kids? You should ask yourself, why did you give yourself such permission to look at whatever is not yours? Many times people have friends from the opposite gender, and I've said this for the last 10 years. There is no such thing as platonic relationships. The only thing there is atomic relationships. It's just a matter of time before that relationship between you and her explodes into something forbidden. And that's exactly what the Gemara says. And you should not converse excessively with the woman because you may ultimately come to perform an act of lewdness. People that have friends or colleagues that they become friendly with of the opposite gender, they're asking for problems. All you got to do is look at anybody that you know that's divorced and ask them who committed the adultery and with whom And you'll find out it's always the friend, it's always the colleague, it's always the Platonic relationship that turned into atomic. But the sages teach us all of these very sensitive matters with very clean language, with very pure words, in order to show us that even though this is the issue that's on the mind of everyone, it does not give us permission to just do what we want. Needless to say, look at what we want. Even though it's animals that are mating, it still does not give us any permission to look at it, unless you are someone that's in the business of mating these animals and it's your profession. It's just like a male doctor that has women patients. He's allowed to perform the surgeries or the things that he has because he's occupied with his profession. He's not thinking the provocative thoughts. Of course, in this generation, there's always exceptions, and there's always people that, unfortunately, are criminals behind the uniform. But generally speaking, when you go to a doctor, you don't have to worry about these types of things. Still, for all women, we've always said it's always an obligation for you to search out a female doctor for all needs, and for men to search out a male doctor for all needs. And if it's not possible to find a male or female doctor, then you go to the opposite. There was once somebody asked me, listen, I have some backaches, but the place that we have, it's only women there giving a massage. I said, okay, so go to a different place that has men. No, I don't want to sin, so I just want to ask if it's allowed to go. I said, no, it's you have other places that have men that are going to give you the massage because you have a backache or whatever you have an ache. Go there. Oh, no, it's not really, I don't really like that. Oh, okay, so exactly. So you are going to sin. Don't try to pretend like you're some tzaddik and you're pretending like you don't want to sin. You want me to somehow put a kosher stamp on your pig. If you really have a backache, you'll go to somebody that can actually help you, and it doesn't have to be somebody that you're attracted to. Now, if a person wants to protect their neshama, they'll be careful of where they go, of what they do, and it all begins with the eyes. And that's what the Tzetel Katan is telling us here, that if a person saw it by accident, immediately they should say to themselves this verse that we say in Shema Yisrael, do not follow after your heart. Why? Why do not follow after your heart? Why the heart? The heart is referring to the imagination. This is a dangerous place. Once a person looks at something for long enough, which could be literally as much as 2, maybe 3 seconds, it's not the first look, it's usually the second look, the turnaround one, the one where you're already looking at the person, not just they aren't in your line of sight. At that moment, your mind starts transferring the information to your imagination, to your heart. And the longer you look, the more fuel you're giving to your imagination to think more and more things. And if you're looking at something inappropriate, the outcome is going to be inappropriate. Even if you're looking at someone that you shouldn't even be attracted to. Whether it's a relative, a colleague, someone that's married, your best friend, whoever it is. The more you stare at someone, the more you allow the mind to imagine. And that's why the Tzetel Katan is telling us, as soon as you see something accidentally that's inappropriate, that's indecent, immediately repeat the verse, do not follow after your heart. Why? Don't let that accidental look turn into a stare, turn into something that is going to continue bringing in more of this inappropriate information into your heart and start imagining things. So remind yourself, don't bring it into your heart. Don't bring it in. Because if you let it in, then the next stage happens, which is that the Yetzer and his wife, the Sitra Achra, are going to get access to the mind. Because after a person has taken up things and started imagining them, they open up the door from the imagination of the heart to the mind, where the soul rests. And that's exactly what the Satan has been waiting for. He could have been waiting for it all day. He could have been waiting for it all week. And in some cases, he could have been waiting for it all year, for you to finally give him and his evil wife access to your mind. Because that is where your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu rests. That's where the Kodesh Kodashim is. The Yetzer tries to cleave onto your mind, to get access to your mind, to your brain, to where your soul is. Because that's where you connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if he can damage that, he can damage your connection with Hashem. This is what's called the Mishkan HaKodesh. Mishkan HaKedusha. This is the altar of the holiness. This is you. The body, the flesh, is not you. What's you? What's in here. That Neshama that's in here. The moment you allow your imagination to run wild and think about all types of inappropriate things because you're watching movies, or you're watching commercials, or you're watching the news, or you're watching people at your job, or people on the street, or a billboard, or something on the internet, or whatever other filth ran across your line of sight, and you did not stop looking at it as soon as you saw it. Instead, you looked at it further. You now have given it access to the imagination, and within a few seconds, that accident turns into a mistake because it opened up a door from the imagination of your heart into the door to your soul and your mind. You just gave the Yetzer access to the Kodesh Kodashim. And that's why the Gemara in Masechet Yoma, page 29b, says, the thoughts of sin are worse than the sin. And there comes the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim to explain how could the thoughts of the sin be worse than the sin itself. It's because the sin is completed. And then the thoughts of it are no longer part of your life. You're finished. But the thoughts that a person has in their mind, they could literally continue far longer than the actual sin, the act itself. You could literally think about the sin for hours, for days, for months, for years. And in fact, that thought in itself leads you to more sins than the real act itself. But what makes it even worse, says the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim, is that when you damage the mind, you're damaging the place of holiness, the Mishkan HaKedusha that you have, where it's your connection between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and no one else. When you damage your mind, you're damaging that connection. You're damaging your relationship with the King of Kings. And the more a person realizes what's at hand, what's at stake, the more a person will be inclined to make the right decisions, whether male or female. Some may be surprised, but the reality is that we get quite a few messages and outcries for help and guidance from women like we do for men. For this particular issue, many women reach out with anonymous emails, sometimes with real emails or text messages or whatever it is, asking for help because of their addiction to immorality. This is not just a male-only problem like many people think, ignorantly. And this we've known for years, we've discussed many times. A filthy mind is a filthy mind, no matter what age, no matter what gender. And we see it in the world we live in today of how they're literally trying to manipulate reality to fit their demented agenda of immorality. But for a Jew that wants to attain holiness, that wants to do the right thing, it is critical for you to know that it is impossible for you to ever achieve any level of holiness without protecting your eyes. You can be learning in yeshiva, learning in a kollel, even the rabbi. If you are not protecting your eyes, you're not attaining holiness for yourself, but rather all of the holiness that you're getting from learning Torah feeds the Yetzer, feeds the Sitra Achra, says the Zohar Kadosh. Meaning that all of the hard work that you're doing learning Torah, instead of it going into your account to make you stronger, if you're not protecting your eyes, if as soon as you finish yeshiva you went and you looked at things that are inappropriate which led to horrible actions, that learning goes and empowers the Sitra Achra. And I've had rabbis and avrechim and yeshiva bachurim and all types of people reach out asking for help, and Baruch Hashem, we've helped quite a few people over the years. We've succeeded with countless of them. But there are certain people that don't want to help themselves. They think that they can delve into both parts of the world. They can learn Torah, but then once in a while they can look at things that are inappropriate. If you're not protecting your eyes, you're not protecting your heart, and certainly you're not protecting your soul. Because as soon as you allow your heart to imagine all of these provocative things, whether it be with male, female, animals, birds, doesn't make a difference. The moment you allow yourself to look at these things, that's it. You've opened up the back door to the Sitra Achra to enter whenever she pleases. Her and her husband. One of the ways that you can tell for yourself, not for anybody else. Don't look at people and assume this is the reason why. Always look at yourself first. Unfortunately, many people sometimes will learn something and start thinking of all the people that are guilty instead of themselves. Rule of thumb: if Hashem made sure that you're listening to it, out of all the things that you could be listening to at this moment, you're listening to it, that's because it affects you, not somebody else. It may affect somebody else also, but it certainly affects you. And one of the ways that you can tell that the mind of a person is, in the best case scenario, damaged, in the worst case scenario, corrupted altogether, is how much kavanah they have in their prayers and in their mitzvot. How excited they are to learn Torah, to fulfill mitzvot, to celebrate Shabbat, the holidays, to give tzedakah, all of these things are not necessarily all because of good or bad character traits. Many times, a person damages a part of their neshama they didn't realize that they even damaged it. Because what people don't realize is that there are certain parts of the evil inclination that you're not even aware you have until you awaken it. This is what the Tzetel Katan is trying to tell us here. That if a person accidentally sees something indecent, God forbid, such as animals or birds mating, like a person thinks of this, like, why would that even turn me on? Why would that even cause me to do anything inappropriate? Exactly. A normal person does not think inappropriate thoughts until he sees something like that. Meaning, there is an evil inclination within you that you're not even aware you have until you turn it on. Until you saw that, you never desired it. You never thought about it. You never cared about it. It never led you to think about something else, whether it be with this or with something else. And that's one of the things people are not aware of. When the sages say something, they're telling you about things that you may not be aware of. There are certain parts of the evil inclination that you have that you will only find out either through the books or when it's too late. A wise person learns from the books and does not allow themselves to wait until it's too late. But even if a person learned the hard way, they can still fix it. But if a person finds themselves questioning, why is Hashem even showing me this? I'm not looking at things inappropriately on purpose, maybe on accident here and there. Well, check yourself when you're doing mitzvot. Are you as excited for Rosh Hashanah as some people are for the non-Jewish holidays they're not even allowed to celebrate, like Thanksgiving and Halloween? Are you as excited about fasting on Yom Kippur as you are about going to work? Are you as excited about Shabbat as you are about a business deal? In fact, are you as excited about praying as you are about a business meeting that could land you $1 million or more? If you're not, that means that although you may be good and nice and wonderful and charitable and all types of other things, that means that there is a certain amount of potential within your neshama that is not being utilized because something has damaged it. And that's why the prophet Isaiah says in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in chapter 43, verse 23, Lo ti karata Yaakov, ki agata BeEzrat. But you did not call out to me, O Yaakov, for you grew weary of me, O Israel. Here the prophet says in the name of Hashem that there are times that a person prays, but instead of it praying and being as excited or even more excited about it as they are about a business meeting, in fact they find themselves eager to finish praying, eager to finish this prayer so they can go back to the business, so they go back to sports, so they go back to games, they can go back to doing nothing. But if it was a business meeting, the only time that they're ever upset is if it's over. Why is that? Because sometimes a person has damaged a part of his soul, a part of her soul, in a way they don't even realize, where they're not as eager to do the mitzvot, they're not as eager to serve Hashem, they're not as eager to pray to Hashem, they're not as eager to talk to Hashem, they're not as eager to give tzedakah, to publicize Torah, to help Am Yisrael eat, to help Am Yisrael learn Torah. They're more eager to sell pharmaceuticals, to buy dresses, to buy a car, to buy a second house, to fix their kitchen. They're more eager to do those things. There's a reason for that. And the reason is there's a damage to the soul that you're not aware of. And that damage to the soul started with the eyes. Looking at something that was forbidden, looking for something that was not for you, allowing your mind to delve into it, damaging the Neshama, the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in such a fashion that you don't even realize it's damaged. Until it was time to give tzedakah for the high holidays, and instead of giving 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 like you could afford, you gave $100, or you gave 50, or perhaps you didn't give it all because you figured, listen, I gave enough already during the year. Or when time came to learn Torah, you didn't really feel like learning today, so you just decided, you know what, I'll just skip today, and tomorrow, and the week, and next week, and perhaps even next year. It wasn't as important as the business meetings. It wasn't as important as the politics. If I ask you, what's the most recent story you've learned in the Gemara? What's the most recent sugya you've gone through? You're not going to remember. What daf are you holding on? No clue. What's this week's parasha? You're going to look at your phone to make sure you're right. But if I ask you anything about politics or sports or what's happening in the stock market, right away, that information clicks right away. Why? It's not only because you are more inclined to connect to the physical world you live in, the materialism, but it's also because there's a certain part of the Neshama that was damaged because of not watching your eyes. And that could all be fixed. That could all be fixed. In fact, Rabotai Yekarim, when a person understands what's expected for them in Shamayim, they'll understand that not only it can be fixed, but it must be fixed. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, if when you're praying, you feel like it's a burden, then you're not praying to me. You aren't calling out to me, O Yaakov, because you were wary. It was like you were holding a burden as if you're helping me with your prayers, as if I need you, O Israel. If it's a burden, it's not the Torah. If it's a burden, it's not Hashem. It's something else. When a person understands how beautiful the opportunity is for us to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not only is it no longer a burden, they become more excited for it than anything else. They prioritize it over everything else. But until a person cleans their mind, it's not even possible to see that perspective. Meaning, so long as a person's mind is full of junk, it's not possible for them to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth that you should be excited to serve Hashem. Because the average person says, I'll do it if I have to. I just don't want to get punished. That's what the Rambam was talking about when he said the lowest level of serving Hashem is people that serve Hashem only because they're afraid of punishment. It wasn't because, punishment is thinking of punishment is a bad thing. But if the only reason you're serving Hashem is because you'll do it just because you don't want to get punished, that's obviously not an ideal situation. It's still better than not doing anything, but it's certainly not ideal. It's certainly not where you should be. Where should we be? Says the Sifri in Parashat Vayitchanan, in Piska Vav 6. Each day shall be like new to you, new to your eyes, just like Hashem renews the world each day. Meaning, where we're supposed to be is that every time we look at the Torah, even if we've read this parasha every year for the last 30 years, 40 years, each time we look at the Gemara, even if we've read this daf 50 times, every time we look at the mitzvah, even if we've been celebrating this holiday for the last 50 years, every time we wash our hands, even though we've been doing it every single day for 30, 40 years, every single time we do a bracha for something to eat, even though we've blessed 1,000,000 times, should be as if it's brand new, as if it was just created. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu recreates the creation every day without thinking, come on, I already did this yesterday. I've been doing this for so many years already. Every day, create the sky, create the heavens, create the people, create the ground, create the trees, create everything. Every day he's creating everything. He's letting everything live. All of the atoms continue spinning in order for the creation. It's constantly recreating creation. Without saying, I already did this. Maybe I should just stop for one day. HaKadosh Baruch Hu recreates everything every single day. Every single day he gives us another opportunity to serve him, to do what we're supposed to do what's good for us. The Sifri says, this is really the way we're supposed to behave with the mitzvot. Where every time we look at Hashem's mitzvot, every time we look at Shabbat, we don't act like the Christian New Testament that says Yoshke thinks he's above the Shabbat or above the mitzvot. Chas v'shalom. Rather we say, thank you HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us the Shabbat. Where even though it's only Sunday, I'm already looking forward to the Shabbat. Even though I haven't eaten yet, I'm looking forward to eat just so I can make a blessing. Even though Chanukah is a month away, I'm already preparing for it now. A person should literally have their life involved with mitzvot second after second. And everything else just that they have to do, whether it's to make a living or whatever it is they have to do, they have to do it, but they have to also find a way to connect the mitzvot, connect the HaKadosh Baruch Hu to everything. And the more you actually think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, the easier it becomes. But if you still have a damage in that neshama as a result of not protecting your eyes, you're always going to limit your joy. It's like someone has certain nerves in parts of their body turned off. If those nerves in that part of the body are turned off, that means they're not going to sense certain things. They're not going to enjoy certain things. They're not going to know if something dangerous is happening. One of the most dangerous cases that a person could ever have is if they don't have the ability to feel pain. There's certain cases where, unfortunately, people had these conditions where literally they were burning without even realizing it. So imagine a situation where a person has the greatest thing in the world in front of them, but they're missing the sensors to ever enjoy this thing. This is what happens to the mind as a result of looking at things that you're not allowed to look at immorality, at perversion, at pornography, at filth that the world is full of. The first look, that's an accident, says Rabbi Elimelech, you could save yourself from. How? Look away and see the verse from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 29. But if you allow yourself to continue looking, in fact, even worse, you look for it, don't be surprised if every prayer and every mitzvah that you do feels like a burden, feels like 1,000 tons on your shoulders, where you can't wait to finish your prayer, you can't wait to finish your studies, you can't wait for Shabbat to finish, you can't wait for the holiday to finish, you can't wait to do anything but what the Torah says. That's because there's a certain part of the Neshama that's damaged. And the way to fix it is protecting your eyes. Now, a person that sinned with his eyes could repair these sins not only by protecting them and not looking, but also by crying over his sins. Says the Sharei Tshuva, Rabbeinu Yonah, in Shar 15. In the first Shar, in the section 15. That a person who sinned with his eyes can repair them by crying over his sins, as it's written in Tehillim 119 verse 136, rivers of water flowed from my eyes because they did not keep your Torah. The verse does not say because I did not keep your Torah, rather it says because my eyes did not keep the Torah. Meaning that if a person uses these eyes that sinned to cry, that in itself is a measure fix for violating the Torah by looking at things that are inappropriate, by not guarding your eyes. Also, the Avodat Panim, chapter 3, section 11, says that the difficulty that a person experiences in guarding their eyes is considered like as if they're fasting. Certainly, you just cannot replace the fast that a Jew is obligated to do on Yom Kippur or on Tisha B'Av, but the point is that if a person has to do tikkunim, protecting your eyes is even more important than the tikkun itself. Why? Because if you're doing a tikkun, but you're still looking at filth, it's not going to help you. Rav Shmuel Vosner, the Shevet HaLevi, in section 4, 160, he writes as follows. The sin of the youth, meaning he's talking about wasting seed. The sin of youth, which is the most heinous crime in the Torah. And don't think that he was alone saying this. This is actually what the Shulchan Aruch calls wasting seed. The worst sin in the Torah. The sin of youth, which is the most heinous crime in the Torah, is the cause of all Jewish suffering and of all the harsh decrees that we face. This is a Rav Vosner, Gdol Ador. He's telling it simply. If you have a rabbi or somebody in your community that tells you, no, these issues shouldn't be talked about in public, they have Rav Vosner to deal with after they finish this life. Why? Rav Vosner is telling us, not only is this something that we have to deal with, we have to learn about, but it literally is the cause of all the suffering we have as individuals and as a nation. And he's not alone. We've brought you hundreds and hundreds of sources over the years, from the Zohar, from the Gemara, from Shulchan Aruch, from everywhere, that say the same thing. But the point is that this is a recent Gadol that says the sin of the youth is the most heinous crime in the Torah and is the cause of all Jewish suffering and of all the harsh decrees that we face. Furthermore, all the ups and downs a person experiences in life are based on one's level of spiritual purity, his Kedushat HaBrit. This sin starts off sweet, but ends in bitterness, leading to depression and dissatisfaction, which robs a person of the joy in life. On the other hand, guarding the covenant, guarding one's eyes, not touching that which is prohibits, and avoiding forbidden newspapers or books brings happiness, confidence, and joy in your life. Furthermore, the gates of Torah and fear of God open for him. Here, Rav Shmuel Vosner, the Shevet HaLevi, tells us clear and simple. You want any level of Kedusha in your life, you have to protect your eyes. You want to have Yirat Shamayim? You have to protect your eyes. You want to have joy in your life, happiness in your marriage, with your kids? Protect your eyes. You want to have a relationship with a Kadosh Baruch Hu? Protect your eyes. In so many words, without Kedushat HaBrit, a person is literally self-destructing, both this world and the next. As the Talmud says, if a person avoids sinning and overcomes his evil inclination 2 or 3 times, then the Holy One himself will guard this person from then on. As the verse says in the book of Job, chapter 33, verse 29, behold, God does all these things twice or thrice with a man. Meaning, this Sefer, Israel Kedoshim, is telling us that after you've overcome this obstacle on your own 2 or 3 times, Hashem will start helping you overcome it. But not until you help yourself. And for those of you that are still looking forward to bringing more children to the world, or you have young ones and you want them to be good ones too, protecting your eyes not only has an impact, but has literally a direct connection to what kind of kid you're going to have. Says the Imre Kodesh, in the name of Rabbi Uri of Lizhensk, a father who guards his eyes will merit raising his children without suffering. He will merit healthy and successful children. Here you're getting a promise from Gdolei Israel. For what? For helping yourself. For helping yourself, Rabotai. This was the secret that made Avraham Avinu. In last week's parasha, we saw how Avraham Avinu distinguished himself from every person that ever lived. And until this day, Am Yisrael benefits from it. If a person wants to have the benefit of being connected to Avraham Avinu, they must protect their brit. They must protect their brit, which means they must protect their eyes. Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk is telling us, even if you're already on the right path, never sleep on the Yetzer and think that you're done. Because he's going to come back as often as possible and be as annoying as possible, looking for you to have your guard down. Whether it's from someone at work, in school, wherever. And that's why the Tzetel Katan is telling us that even if you're at a situation where you're already at a point where you're not doing it electively, you're not doing it intentionally, you still have to continuously provide your Neshama protection and nourishment. The nourishment comes from learning more Torah, including Musar, about this topic. Nourishment includes increasing your Yirat Shamayim. Nourishment means doing more chesed, helping more of Am Yisrael. Do tshuva. As the Likutei Etzot says that one that helps others do tshuva is specifically doing a favor for himself about this particular sin. Sending people the lectures about Tikkun Brit, or donating to the Tikkun Brit campaign that we have, TikkunBrit.live, and doing your own tikkunim. These things directly impact your spiritual status because you're helping other people do tshuva. But again, if you're going to continue looking at things that are inappropriate, you're literally throwing all of the blessings that Hashem is giving you out of the window. So the Tzetel Katan is telling us that even if you're at a point where you're no longer throwing things out of the window, you're protecting, you're working hard, you still have to know that the Yetzer is also working hard. And he's going to try to bring you all types of things that unless you learn halacha, of what's allowed and what's forbidden, you're going to think it's not a big deal. What's the big deal of seeing somebody, a different couple? hugging or kissing. What's the difference? What's the big deal of holding my wife's hand in public? What's the big deal of looking at animals doing what it is that they do? What's the big deal? The big deal is that it's forbidden. That's the big deal. And any time a person does something that the Torah forbids, it damages the soul. And this means that a person needs to always guard themselves because their neshama is on the line. If you guard yourself like your neshama is on the line, you'll succeed. If you guard yourself just because, it's a good thing to do, or you should, or because you heard that it's, it's good, it's not going to be enough. Maybe it'll impact you for a day, 2 days, but it won't be enough. So a person has to know the Yetzer is going to wait for you. A day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, as long as he has to try to finally get the person. And chas v'shalom, you let him do that. It all starts with protecting your eyes. If you see that your prayer is weak, your mitzvah observance is weak, or even if you're doing the mitzvah, you're not really feeling the enjoyment of it, that means that you have to fix something. Fix your eyes is the first thing you can start with. It's hard, but it's easy. It's hard to do because it's something you have to do constantly, but it's easy because you know how to do it. Simply don't look at what's not allowed. You don't have to learn any special skills. Now, many times people ask me about filters. The number one filter is Yirat Shamayim. Having fear of heaven, having fear of His majesty, having fear of a disconnect from Hashem. Certainly there are filters in the market. I've heard mixed reviews about different ones. BeEzrat Hashem, we're also working on one as an organization, which BeEzrat Hashem will be able to offer you guys in the future. But even after we offer, if a person does not have Yirat Shamayim, if a person does not have fear of heaven, no filter in the world is going to help them. Whereas if a person does have Yirat Shamayim, certainly a filter can help them. But the truth is, Rabotai, if a person does everything that the sages teach, they're going to have a filter on every part of their soul by default. Because their mind is going to constantly be on Torah. They're not going to have time to sin. That's what the Rebbe Mikosk said. It's not only that he doesn't want his Chassidim to sin. He doesn't want them to have time to sin. He wants them to be learning Torah all day, doing mitzvot, doing chesed. And that's really where a person should get themselves to. Constantly be involved in mitzvot. Even if you're at work, even if you're with the family, even if you're with kids, look for opportunities to connect everything to mitzvot. And if you really do that, you'll be able to succeed in protecting your neshama by protecting your eyes. And if you're protecting your eyes, certainly many blessings will follow. Thank you very much for learning with me. Glad to learn with everyone again. BeEzrat Hashem will learn again later this week. Reminder for everyone to download and try the new app that we have, AI Rabbi. Those that have tried it and subscribed literally tell me it's the greatest thing they've ever seen. It's a gift to the Jewish people. It's something they've couldn't even imagine available to the world. You could just simply see the reviews out there. The reviews in the App Store, the reviews on online. People that have downloaded this app literally love it as if it's the greatest gift they got. Highly recommend it. You could also use it with your WhatsApp. Point is that it's a something that is a must-have for people that live a Torah lifestyle or want to live a Torah lifestyle, because you'll have questions and you're not going to necessarily always have access to the books that you need or even know which book you actually need. You go to this thing, you ask it a question, regardless of what the question is, and it'll give you an answer, whether it's with a vocal answer or a written answer, based on sources, real sources, reliable sources, and Baruch Hashem help you in your day-to-day life. Thank you very much for learning with us. Anyone that wants to download the app, it's AI Rabbi or airabbi.org. In the App Store, I'm sure it's going to be on the screen as well. And BeEzrat Hashem will learn again later this week. Call to B'cha B'Atzlacha. We are meant to be a light unto the nations, not to follow their misguided practices. Remember, every Jew has to remember that he's a Jew. and she's a Jew. We don't celebrate non-Jewish holidays, even if they seem harmless. It's a zilzul, disrespect to the Torah, and could lead to Chilul Hashem, desecration of God's name. Stick to our holy Torah and our own holidays. That's the path of a true Jew.